You're listening to Let the Beat Build, a music production podcast where I, your host, Marcelino Villalpando, interviews music producers and have them walk us through their creative process. Today on the show we have John Worsley, who's part of the Bristol-based music group Jilk, and we're going to talk about their track Green Creepers, which is off their 2017 release Join the End. But before we hop into the conversation, let's take a listen to some of the music first. First off, thanks for coming on the show today. I really appreciate it.
No worries, man. Good to be here.
And for those that don't know who you are, why don't you kind of give us a little backstory about how you got into making music?
So the first time I made music on a computer, I was 15. You know, between 15 and 21, it was really messing around, not at all serious. Really basic programs on my parents' kind of PC and stuff. And then I had this huge chunky PC when I went to uni, and my first degree was in film, and I realized that I was having way more fun making soundtracks to these films that I was making than actually making the films. So after I finished that, I went straight into a master's degree in music technology, and it was kind of then that I started to take it seriously, and it was then that I learned Pro Tools and stuff, and so yeah, I think probably 10 years I've actually been producing with proper intent and skill, you know?
That makes sense to where you get your cinematic feel from, because I feel like a lot of your music would be perfect for movies. I want to pivot over and talk about Jilk now. What's your story? How did you guys form, and how many members do you guys have in your group?
So at the moment there's 4 of us in the band, and there are 4 of us when we play live, but that number kind of shrinks and grows all the time. So at one point live there were 7 of us, up to 9, which is ridiculous and really hard to organize.
You're like the Wu-Tang Clan.
Yeah, we think that a lot about ourselves. I like the idea that Jilk is this revolving door, and people can come in and out as they want. At the moment there's this core 4 of us, and that's working really well, but that's not to say that that won't change. Often when we play live there's only 3 of us or 2 of us or 7 of us, and definitely when we're making music there are loads of different people involved. But in its current form, we've been kind of writing and recording for about maybe 5 years. Yeah.
That's crazy how many members you guys have gone through. So who are the current core 4?
So at the moment in Jilk, there's myself, there's Neil, who sings, plays guitar. He plays a lot of instruments, actually. He's a very talented guy. Terry, who plays trombone, vibraphone, produces as well. And then Kags, who she writes all the strings. She plays violin, but she writes all her string parts. And that's kind of the central group at the moment.
Let's talk about Green Creepers now. How did this track come about?
Green Creepers is really old now. It's so it only just came out on this album in September, but I wrote the demo for it, man, I reckon 3 or 4 years ago. I just completed a project that was collaborative. It was kind of a band thing, but less so than the releases we've had on Mooncircle. And I wanted to do something a little bit different, and something kind of inspired by jazz and just sort of quite choppy and a bit awkward sounding. And I remember one day just sitting down and wanting to sort of have jazz drums in a track, chopped up, but also mix that with other sort of sound palettes, drum sound palettes and stuff. What I tend to do is get a drum pack or sample something from YouTube or a record and chop it into individual hits, and then load that into a drum machine in Reason and kind of write fairly sort of quite intricate, complicated patterns. then import that into Pro Tools and sort of re-chop them up all over again. I've got a couple of patches, like Max MSP patches. It's a program that allows you to make your own software, your own musical software. And I'll stick the sort of basic drum pattern into that and almost resample it, but kind of glitch it up at different kind of intervals. It takes a long time, but it's kind of worth it. You sort of end up with loads of possibilities as to where it might go. You know, it leaves a bit of space to kind of improvise and play on the fly. And I ended up sort of pulling that back a little bit to give it a kind of like a steady pulse. And then the next thing that would have come is this sort of central guitar melody. And I thought it sounded quite a lot like Radiohead. And I played it to some other people and they told me it sounded like Red Hot Chili Peppers. It was kind of very simple and I just sort of played it, not at regular intervals. I think like I played it for like 4 bars, then 8 bars, then 4 bars. But because it was quite slow and paced, it sat really nicely against these kind of hectic drums. So that Glock melody is kind of just playing the guitar chords, but just like picking out the individual notes and sort of descending in the same way. I kind of like things to sound a bit lo-fi and a bit dirty. And I think because it was a soft synth, this Glock sound just sounded way too kind of clean and it wasn't quite sitting with the drums. So I kind of dirtied it up with Bit Crusher. For a bit of contrast, I just wanted it to go into a bit more of like a 4/4 kind of straightforward pulse. So like the drums kind of mirror that as well. It gets a lot more like boom, 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 rather than kind of, you know, chopped up and jazzy. I wanted to keep that sense of movement. So rather than just having like quite staccato hits with the Glock, I wanted to sort of like, for it to walk almost, you know? I'd sent like the demo to Neil and he sent me back this 1.5 minute kind of, it was like a verse and a chorus thing. And the chorus just had this synth in it and it was really like, it sounded really, really epic. And I remember when he sent me all his vocal stems, he didn't send me the synth. And I kind of said to him, oh man, like we have to put that synth in, I love it. I wanted to layer it more, so we added bass in. It's a kind of tweaked preset in Massive called Helsinki. I think it's kind of intended to be played high up, but if you sort of drop it down a few octaves, it sounds really lush and warm. It kind of reminds me of like Boards of Canada. Like I use it in loads of Jilk stuff actually. Just this one sound for bass, it's really nice. I remember I went over to Terry's house and we just set up a couple of mics and recorded all of his bits like in a couple of hours. Like it was really kind of improvised. He hadn't really heard the track that much. I think we probably listened to it through once and then just started laying down lots of ideas and took the best ones basically. He's got a really lush way with melody. They're all like that. Neil is great because you can just send him half a track and he'll work on it for a few days and send you this like totally completed different thing back, and it's really good. Like I'm easily the most rubbish musician in Jilk. It's really nice to be surrounded by all these people that can just like hear a track and you know within minutes write a part that's incredible. Kags, who does all the strings and violins, just has this incredible ear. You know, she just knows what key the track is in and just starts playing. She's called Caroline, actually, but we call her Cags. So the first time you hear the strings, it's like the first verse. We recorded that, just me and her together, not thinking it would be the final recording. We did it as a sort of like, let's lay down a guide track or lay down a couple of ideas. And then much later on, when we kind of were trying to finish the track for the album, me, Cags and Neil all got in the same room, and we realized that the end of the track needed like a big lift. It like needed a big climax. Cags played like one line to the track, and then we muted the track, and she just recorded over and over and over again, only listening to what she'd previously recorded. And we kind of made this like string orchestra just from this one violin, but she's not hearing the track for most of it, and it gives all the strings this really kind of swirling, chaotic feel. I think the strings at the end are my favorite kind of element in the whole thing. There's something about strings that I'm just never gonna get bored of. Even in their like most raw state, they're incredibly beautiful. And I always think it's a shame that you have to mix them a little bit, because I almost always just want to leave them as is. Like, they sound as lovely imperfect as they do kind of mixed and perfect, if that makes sense. Like, we're really influenced by a lot of experimental music. And then emotional music, especially like post-rock. That's where those two things kind of marry for me. I love tracks that are difficult, that challenge you a little bit, but ultimately have this like emotional core to them. What I love about working in a collaborative thing, that these tracks become like interesting to you again, because they're out of your control and they become things you never could have made them. It really helps with not getting frustrated or bored with your own limitations.
I love the live instrumentation in this track. It really took it to the next level. I want to talk about a common thread in a lot of Jilk music, the glitch aspect of it. You know, like I mentioned in the email, at 146, nothing's safe. Even, you know, you even glitched up Neil's vocal.
But these people aren't your friends.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So what's your motive behind that? Like, first off, what plugin are you using? And what is it about the glitch aspect that you love incorporating into your music?
So in terms of how I do it, a lot of the time it isn't really a plugin. It's chopped by hand. I really like that kind of like tangible sort of sense of like grabbing the samples and chopping them up myself. Like occasionally I'll use like a filter gate to get something, to make something like choppy, or like feedback, put like the feedback on delays all the way up and then like kind of tear it straight back so you get kind of like zipping sounds and stuff. Like in terms of why, I don't really know. I think it's what's always interested me. One of the things that's always interested me about electronic music is why would you have it do things that normal instruments can do? Like, why would you program drums with a drum kit sound playing like a straight rock beat? Like, if you're going to do that, get a human to do it because it will sound better. I think, I think electronic music should kind of be weird and broken and, you know, doing things that humans can't do, like human drummers can't do.
Right. That's what I really like about your guys' sound, is the how you combine the unorthodox percussive elements with the organic orchestral sounds. I think it's really cool personally, and it's actually really indicative of the record label that you're a part of, Project Mooncircle. You mind, in your own words, kind of introducing them for those who aren't familiar with them, kind of what Project Mooncircle is?
Project Mooncircle is a Berlin label, and they're really, I didn't know much about them until we got involved in them, but check them out, and they really like sort of like, it's music that I'd call like LA beat music, but obviously I'm conscious that you're from or in LA.
The whole low end theory scene?
Yeah, exactly. Like hip hop influenced, kind of like choppy, like chilled kind of electronic, moving a little bit into like techno, but all their stuff has this real like relaxed, beautiful vibe to it.
I definitely agree. It's a very well curated catalog overall. How did you guys become involved with the label? Did you reach out to them, or did they reach out to you?
We got involved with them because we did. There's a band here in the UK called Haiku Salute. We did a collaborative track with Haiku Salute because we gigged with them a couple of times, and we did a video for it. And the video did quite well. It like ended up like touring a lot of film festivals and stuff. And Project Mooncircle saw that song and they saw that video, and they just sort of tweeted us and just said like, we really dig this. But just off the back of that, we sent them a handful of tracks, and we did like a vinyl EP with them. And what's really cool about them is that they're big believers in putting out like music by people that aren't necessarily really well known. Like if they like the music, they'll put it out if they believe in it.
That's awesome that they gave you the freedom to do you know?
Mm.
I want to pivot back to Green Creepers. You mentioned earlier that it's an older track and that you sat with it for quite a bit. Is that a typical approach?
Yeah, yes and no. I think it's unusual in the amount of time it was a thing. Like from the day that I started it to the day that it was finished, it must have been like 3 or 4 years. And stuff doesn't normally take that long. We do kind of take our time, and things do sit dormant for a while, but that was like an unusually kind of long amount of time.
So during that 3 to 4 year span, did the mood ever change? Like, how did the track evolve during that time?
I think initially I wanted it to be, for the longest time it was just this kind of nice bit of jazzy electronica. And then it became this like Radiohead sort of influenced kind of emotional song, a little bit chaotic, but essentially kind of quite nice. And then it really became like a much more abrasive and full song when the other guys kind of came in on it. So
last question of the day. Where does Jilk go from here?
So at the moment, we're just we're kind of in a writing phase. We're recording on a weekly basis, just sort of trying new ideas, and we have a load of material now. We have sort of enough for, like, I think probably a couple of albums if we were going to put it all out, and then hopefully by the end of the year we'll have an EP or an album, probably an album, I think.
Well, I look forward to that, and thanks for coming on the show today. I really appreciate it.
Awesome. Thank you for having me. It's really cool chatting in depth.
I want to listen to Green Creepers in its entirety. So you want to go ahead and introduce that for us?
Yeah, sure. This is John from Jilk, and this is our track Green Creepers.
So why don't you tell everybody where we can find your music at?
So if you go to Project Mooncircle Bandcamp, our last 2 releases are on there, and you can order those like physical and digital. Otherwise, we've got a SoundCloud, soundcloud.com/Jilk, and you can get us on Twitter and Facebook as well.
I want to thank John for coming on today's episode and giving us a glimpse behind the creative process. I also want to thank you, the listener, for spending your time with us, because you could have been anywhere else in this world, but you're here with us, and I appreciate that. If you found value in today's episode, please share it with a friend or give us a positive rating. We'd really appreciate it, because that would help other people find the show as well. Let the Beat Build can be found on all podcast platforms, including Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, Google Play, SoundCloud, and now Spotify. Once again, I'm your host, Marcelino Villalpando, and this is Let the Beat Build. Until next time, peace.